Today we're going to talk about why I think I still own CDs in 2024. I'm a pretty big fan of CDs. I always have been. I've been basically collecting them since the mid 80s, and I still think they're the best format to have. And I'm going to go over about 8 reasons why I think that these are still the best format to have and why I still own them, a lot of them, in 2024. As you probably saw from the thumbnail, I mean, that is part of my CD collection. I have probably over 500 CDs. I haven't actually counted in a really long time. If you want to skip all the banter, I will have chapter markers in the bottom that you can skip to if you want to go right to the reasons. But just a little backstory. Like I said, I've been collecting CDs since probably the mid 80s. When I first started listening to music and stuff, and I have a lot of those still to this day, the CDs that I originally had when I was a kid. Like I said, over here that you can't see, it was part in that thumbnail, I have over 500 CDs last time I checked. I probably have close to 1,000 now, if not more. I do have a massive collection of vinyl too, but I have more CDs than I have anything else. So I'm just going to kind of talk about why I still think they're the best to own, even in this day and age with streaming, vinyl, cassettes, and all that stuff. So number one, I definitely think affordability is going to be high up there. Now, you definitely can't beat Spotify, Apple Music, whatever streaming services that you are on. I also have Spotify. I mean, for the convenience and for the massive amount of collection, I definitely give it to Spotify or Apple Music all the way on that one. It's pretty easy to just jump in your car with your phone, plug it in, and you can have almost endless songs. And that's it. It's already in your phone. You don't have to carry anything extra. Back in the day, we used to have to use something like this, which is a portable CD player. You could either kind of have this just sitting somewhere and listen to it. You could plug this into your car. And now some cars you still can. My Tundra that you can see behind me here, I don't have an auxiliary input, so I actually cannot listen to CDs in my truck, which kind of bums me out, but it is what it is. But in a lot of other cars, if you have an auxiliary jack, you can plug this straight into your auxiliary jack and listen to CDs in your car or truck. I can't do that, unfortunately, but I can still listen to them, obviously, with this. I have an in-house stereo system right in front of me here that I listen to CDs that I have one in the house too. But as far as streaming and things, so that streaming's going to win when it comes to convenience. But again, number one, I think, is affordability. These have never been cheaper than they are right now. Even on Amazon, a lot of brand new CDs are like $10, $8, $12, still cheaper than they used to be back in the day. A lot of times CDs were anywhere from $15 to $20 brand new. Today they're still brand new. They're a lot less expensive to buy. If you go to thrift stores and things, you can find these. Mostly Goodwill sells CDs mostly for 99 cents. That's amazing in my opinion. And if you go to like Savers, Value Village, depending, they're like $2.99 now. But still, $3 for a CD is amazing. The sound quality is just, it just can't be beat. So that's number one, affordability. Number two, physical. To actually have the physical format in front of you. CDs, it's nice like this, for example. Even the CD is cool. It's just got a cool design on it. Having the physical copy basically eliminates that you never lose it. You never have to worry about Spotify or Apple Music not having it. You don't have to worry about them changing lyrics. I know I've seen on like some streaming on some movies that a lot of streaming services have taken out certain parts of movies that used to be in there for whatever offensive purposes or whatever it is. But if you don't like that, then you really never have to worry about that with these old physical CDs, because once it's on there, that's it. It's not being changed. It's also kind of cool. A lot of the stuff they give you in these, for example, the Scorpions live album, it comes with, it's just got cool pictures in it from like their actual tour, right? When they were making this album. You don't get this kind of stuff on Spotify. You just don't. I'm sure they have pictures and stuff, but you know, you're not really paying attention to that. You know, it's just got cool, just cool stuff. You know, back in the day, again, before there was internet and all that, you know, this is the kind of stuff we would look at while we were listening to the CDs. Even the CD itself, like I mentioned before, is, you know, it's cool. It's just got a cool design, right? It's just something eye-catchy, you know. So with a physical copy, once you own it, you own it. You don't have to worry about it leaving your platform or you know, anything like that. Durability, I would say for number three. Number three is durability. Now, I'm not comparing this to Spotify, but this would be compared to cassettes and vinyl, you know, 8-track if you still listen to that, but mostly cassettes and vinyl. So, you know, CD, I mean, they're very hard, right? They're kind of more on the thicker side of plastic. The cases, you know, are pretty sturdy. When you compare that to a cassette, you know, the cassette tapes themselves, I mean, the cases are pretty sturdy, and the cassette itself, if I can open this, is pretty sturdy too. You know, it's really not going to break falling on the ground or anything like that. But, you know, God help you if this thing, you know, this ribbon here comes out, right, and it gets twisted, and then you got to do the pencil trick, you know, get all that. Just for durability's sake. Now with vinyl too, vinyl is very sensitive. I just happen to have this, you know, Bruce Springsteen record out here. It's pretty worn, so I'm just going to touch it because it's pretty jacked up anyway. I don't really listen to it anymore, but I mean, you know, the slightest warp in this or hump or anything, dust, any of that stuff, you know, and it'll skip. It will sound terrible. You can hear every single, you know, piece of dust on here, any scratches, stuff like that. I mean, these are probably the most delicate out of anything. You can't store these just anywhere, right? For example, as you've seen in some of my other videos, most of my videos I make in my garage. I can't store vinyl records in my garage. I live in the southwest of the United States, where it gets to be anywhere from 115 to 120 degrees outside. My garage gets probably a little bit hotter than that, maybe 125 or something like that. So if I stored my records out here, they would, you know, warp in a second. Cassettes too, not really a good idea to store in the heat. Anybody who grew up in the 80s and 90s who kept these in their car, you know, a lot of times you would come back in, go to play the cassette, and it would be all warped because you left it out in the heat. CDs, on the other hand, they are susceptible to heat, but it takes a lot more. I store all my CDs out in the garage. Most of them, probably 3/4 of my collection, is out in my garage here all year. I never have any problems with them. They don't melt. The cases don't melt. They're just a lot more durable than vinyl and cassettes. The other, I'd say, the next reason is going to be wear and tear. So again, let's move over to the cassette first. Now, cassettes are cool, like from a nostalgic standpoint, but in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, this audio medium was the worst format that ever came out as far as audio quality. This and 8-tracks. I mean, it just, they were terrible. Again, if you put them in, if that's all you had at the time, you know, in the late 80s, early 90s, if that's all you had were cassettes, and, you know, CD players were expensive back then. So if this was all you had, then, you know, you had to deal with it. But the thing with cassettes and vinyl is that literally, you know, there's a physical object required to play them. So with vinyl, you know, it has a needle that goes over the grooves to produce the music. Well, every time that needle goes into that groove, it wears it down just a little more. So this record theoretically will never ever sound as good as it did the very first time you played it. It will always have some sort of degradation in it, you know, over time. Every single time you play it, it's always going to lose just a little bit of quality to it. The same with the cassettes. The cassettes go over the rollers, right? They go over the thing in the cassette player. Every single time it goes over that device, it degrades it just a little bit more. So same thing with the vinyl. This cassette will never ever sound as good as it did when it was brand new. The very first time it played, it will never sound like that again. CDs, on the other hand, there really is no, I mean, you could count the laser, but this CD, if you can see on the back of here, says, right, for BMG. So again, any Gen Xers who remember BMG or Columbia House. So I got this CD in the 90s, right, in the mid 90s. I got this CD. So we're talking about 30 years I've had this same CD. Well, this CD will sound exactly the same as it did the first time I played it when it was brand new. So if I played this on a CD player when it was brand new, it's still going to sound exactly the same as it did today. Now, of course, I have different CD players than I did in the 90s, but let's say for all intents and purposes, you know, again, all other things being equal, let's say I had this same exact stereo that I have today. If I had this in the 90s, when I first got this, it'll sound exactly the same today as it did back then. So it doesn't wear out like cassettes, vinyl, you know, 8-tracks do. The next reason would be, you know, again, like I said, information, booklets. You don't get that stuff with streaming. You don't get it at all. A lot of times they have the lyrics in there. Now I know they have the lyrics on Spotify and stuff like that, but I don't know, for some reason, again, and this is probably more a generational thing. You know, you probably would have had to grow up in the 70s, 80s, 90s when, you know, when you still got this, when this was still the dominant format. And it came with, you know, liner notes, producer stuff, the lyrics. It was always fun to read the lyrics in these things, just to kind of, you know, sometimes there's a lot of songs where you don't actually know what he's saying, he or she is saying in the words. You're like, what are they saying? So it was cool to go in here and listen. Now, again, I know you can do that on Spotify and Apple Music, but again, I think that's probably more of a generational thing as far as, you know, the information. So another thing I want to mention is, you know, originals versus like remasters or re-releases. So a lot of times with these kind of CDs, right, this is a live album. So obviously over time, technology has improved quite a bit. Producing, recording, mixing, engineering has all improved since the 80s and 90s. Well, a lot of times bands will re-release remastered versions of their old albums. And that's all well and good, but a lot of times they'll remove the original version. I believe with some of the old Ozzy Osbourne stuff, when they did like Ozzy Remastered and stuff, it was hard to find the original recordings. Sometimes on the streaming services, they won't have them at all. They'll remove them. So you don't even have access to it. Well, with these, you never have to worry about that. If you have the original one, like if the Scorpions came out with a remastered, you know, Live Bites CD or on streaming or whatever, and they decided not to let you listen to this one anymore, well, now you can't listen to it unless you have the physical copy. So that's another reason why I think physical format CDs is still the best. Another thing is going to be, so moving on to the next reason, some titles are just not available anywhere else. Some titles are not available streaming. Again, streaming is super convenient. I do love having it in my truck, in my house. It's easy to just, you know, put the phone down, hook it up to a Bluetooth speaker and go. But what if you want to listen to a CD or an album that's not available on streaming? A great example of that is this. If you can see that, this is a CD by the band Badlands. This came out in 1989. This album is not available for streaming anywhere. It's, you know, there's some legal stuff going on. The singer Ray Guillen, you know, did some questionable things back in the day, and we'll call them the victims of him, you know, have sued and stuff. There's a whole legal thing, you can read about it, but, you know, be that as it may, they have not allowed this CD to be on streaming platforms, so you can't listen to it. The only way you might be able to find it is like here on YouTube. If you can find it, again, there's, you know, commercials, stuff like that, but you can't stream this from Spotify, Apple Music, whatever your streaming service is. But I have this album physically, so if I want to listen to it, I just open it up and there it is. I don't have to worry about, you can't even buy it. To my knowledge, you cannot order this on Amazon or anything like that, again, because of the legal reasons. Now, I may be wrong on that. I haven't looked in a while, but the last time I looked to try to buy a Badlands album, the only way you can get it is like eBay, you know, reselling. maybe a used record store or something like that, but it's hard to find. I haven't seen it for sale brand new. So so that's another great reason to own physical media. Again, even if you own the cassette, the records, but those are really, you know, again, the cassette, if you had a Badlands cassette from 1989, it's definitely not going to sound like it did when it first came out. This album sounds exactly the same way it did in 1989 when it came out. The last reason, and again, this is all subjective, this last reason is subjective, but in my opinion, sound quality is there. You just cannot beat the sound quality of CDs. I know there's a lot. Now, I'm not an audiophile by any sense of the word, but you know, we have to be honest with ourselves here. Playing a vinyl record, it's just not going to sound that you can't EQ it as good as you can a CD. There's just I'm sorry. That's just my opinion. I know I'll get yelled at in the comments. Now, it's okay if you prefer the sound of vinyl. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, I'm talking from a strictly like technical, maybe factual standpoint. You just can't beat the sound quality of a CD. When it comes to streaming, you got to remember that stuff is like coming through the air, right? When you're streaming a song, the song is coming through the air into your phone. A lot of them sound good. I'm not saying they don't, but you just cannot beat the sound quality of a CD, in my opinion. It's the absolute epiphany of sound, especially if you have the right setup and everything. Now, again, like I said, I know there's nothing wrong with preferring the sound of vinyl. I do on occasion love the sound of the needle or the stylus going across the record, the scratching. It takes me back to a different time. That's more mental, nostalgic. But when I really want to listen to CDs, like if I'm out in my garage, trying to learn a song, let's say on the guitar, for me the CD is going to win every time because I can hear every kind of subtle nuance that's on the CD. A lot of times, sometimes that stuff gets buried on vinyl in the mix, and you just can't hear it all. And cassettes, that's, those sound terrible. But again, growing up with them, that's all you had. So that's my video on why I think CDs are still the best format physically to own. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what your experience with CDs is. If you like them, dislike them. Do you have any? Do you have a collection? Let me know in the comments. And I would appreciate a subscribe if you found this enjoyable. Check out some of my other videos. Take care.